Good afternoon, everyone, or good evening, depending on where you're joining us from in the world. On behalf of the Embassy of Switzerland in the United States, I want to welcome you once again to our Swiss Film Club, and thank you for joining us, especially those who have watched many films over these several years we've been running this program. My name is Emily Buss, and I work in the public diplomacy section at the Embassy here in Washington, D.C. For this edition, we were screening the film Semret, which follows a woman from Eritrea who's working in Zurich while raising her daughter Jo. She is reluctant to address her traumatic past, but she must do so over the course of the film in order to move forward with her life and her dreams for the future. And I'm very, very excited today to be joined for the discussion by the film's director, Caterina Mona. So thank you so much for joining us from Switzerland.
Thank you for inviting me. Thank you.
So just a very brief introduction before we get into our discussion of the film. Caterina Mona is originally from Zurich in Switzerland. She studied English literature before studying film in Brussels. She is also a very skilled film editor and has edited many feature and documentary films. She's also worked for film festivals in Locarno in Switzerland and in Berlin. Her short film Lost from 2015 premiered at the Locarno Film Festival, and this film, Semret, her first feature film, premiered in 2022, also at the Locarno Film Festival. And we're very grateful to be able to show it here in Washington, D.C. We had an in-person screening, and then it's been available online as well for the past week. So very glad that many more people were able to see this film. Caterina, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today, and we'll jump right into questions. Although let me say briefly, for anyone who is watching live on Crowdcast, if you would like to ask a question over the course of the discussion, you can click the Q&A button and type a question there, and we'll try to get to as many questions as we can over the course of our discussion today. So to start at the beginning, what was your inspiration, Caterina, for telling this story of Semret on film?
Yeah, it's been a while since it started, but actually I was in, I moved to a cooperative here in Zurich, the Kalkbreit. It's quite known actually. It's quite famous around the world in 2014, and it's a very diverse type of cooperative with many families living here, also with children. And there were two families from Eritrea who were living here or still living here, and the kids went to school with my kids. And so I got to know people from Eritrea the first time, like really personally. I had seen people around. I knew a lot of people from Eritrea do come to Switzerland, but it was the first time that I had like a direct contact, and it was really interesting to find out more about where they come from, how they got here, what their reality is here, how they how they managed to learn the language and to find jobs, etc. So that was one point, was just me getting to know like people from the Eritrean community here one-to-one. And then the second part was more this question that I had for myself. Like I had read books and articles about mothers of children that were issued out of rape or sexual violence, and that was the other like topic that was really that interested me very much at the time. And somehow when I found out more about Eritrea and how women, what women go through also in the military service, but also when fleeing their country and on the very dangerous routes they have to go to come here, I realized that it would have been possible to mingle these two interests that I had. And I also felt at that time in 2015, when I started developing the film, there was a big propaganda from the Blick newspaper against people from Eritrea, that they were all just sozial schmarotzer and they were just coming to get the money from Switzerland, etc. So I thought it was very important to kind of like really go and tell the story about a woman who is just a mother basically of a child, obviously, and as any mother in the world of a child just wants the best for her child. And that was very important for me to make a film about a person that we can really empathize with and open our spirit to maybe have more not such simple answers to very complex questions.
Right, right. And absolutely, I think it's a very human story that very much comes across. You mentioned you already started working on this in 2015. So could you speak a bit more about the whole process of filming and especially casting, how you found your actors?
Mhm. Yeah, well, I mean, the longest stretch is the developing, obviously, writing, very different stages, very short versions, longer versions, finding money to write. And I mean, it was my first work as a director and author. I mean, I wrote this short film, but I had been working as an editor my whole life, so I had never written a screenplay. So it was my first time writing a screenplay. So I had to, I went into workshops. I really tried. I read a lot of books, and I tried to find out. Um, I had script consultants working with me. I went into script consulting programs, which is really great. When you can confront yourself with other professionals or also with other colleagues. And so that was like the longest stretch was the development phase. Also to raise the money, it's very difficult to raise the money in Europe in general. There's no private money. It's funded by. I mean, luckily we are lucky to have this system, but I mean it's very difficult to have the access to this money anyway. So we had to work hard, and that I did with my producer Michela Bini. We worked for many years together, and so the casting. From the beginning, I mean, I knew that I wanted to make this film about this woman from Eritrea who lives in Switzerland, and I also knew that there are no actresses from Eritrea in Switzerland. I mean, that really have the skills that have ever really worked in a cinema film. They have maybe worked in like series. They do films obviously in Eritrea, but it's a very very different way of making films. They don't have like film schools or theaters or stuff like that. I mean, it is a very very particular country. It's not like other African countries where there is like a really theater art going on and cinema, etc. I mean, Kenya, Nigeria, whatever, you would find great actresses in those countries. Eritrea is much more complicated. So for me, it was always clear that it wouldn't be an easy task to solve this. But I was like, okay, we're gonna cross the bridge when we get there, and we did. And I mean, I did find actually an actress first in the U.S. I was supposed to work with Ella Thomas from Los Angeles, who is an actress. She's quite known actually. She's also a model, and when I found her, I realized I read that she had lived in Germany from the age of 6 to 16, which was like, oh my! I mean, this was like a miracle come true. And I contacted her. My agent sent the script to her agent, and I also told the agent send her the German version so the agent cannot. Then she will have to read it directly. And well, that worked, and she really wanted to do it. But then COVID came, and unfortunately, I mean, we had the funding and all, and we were supposed to shoot in October, November of 2020. And I was in contact with her in June, and she was like, no, I mean, it was impossible for her to come. She would have been able to get probably a special permit, but she has a 3-year-old kid and a husband, and so I was there. It's like everything was perfect. We had the funding, and I had the secondary roles. I had Teddy. I mean, he had agreed already to be part of it, also through Ella Thomas and everything. It was fantastic. I mean, I had this truly great cast. I had casted the youth, the teenagers, which is a difficult process, and I lost my protagonist. So I was like, okay, well, and I'm a very optimistic person, let's say, and if I believe in something, I will always somehow make it happen. And I knew, well, I'll just go to sleep, and tomorrow I'll get up and I'll find a solution. And so I went back to see who we had. We had lists of names, and the script, I must say, had developed in a direction where Semret had become a person who was talking less and was talking less German. Also, in earlier versions of the script, German was more important. And so I went back to Lula Mebratu, who is Semret now, and I'm really, really happy that she is Semret. It's sometimes things happen and they are just the way that they have to be. And so I went to London and I met Lula, and then it was quite quickly, it was clear that she would be Semret, and we had a great, great time with her. She came more than 1 month before the shooting. We had a lot of time together to rehearse. I had an acting coach also supporting me. working with her, Barbara Fischer, who is a fantastic acting coach, who had also, who had herself, I think, studied and worked a lot in London. So they had like a common ground of like theories that we could work on, and it was really, really a great way to have found her in the end. It was very sad for me, because I think for Ella Thomas, it would have been her first like real main role in an independent film, and yeah, I think it was a story that resonated with her. But yeah, we're still friends, so we still work and talk together on Instagram. It's nice, but yeah.
Right. Oh, that's amazing. And everything happens for a reason, and I'm glad to hear that it all worked out in the end and you remained optimistic. I think that's the only thing, especially the past 2 years with everything that we were working around.
Absolutely.
So you have mentioned the importance of Semret speaking German, and this is very much a film about migration and finding yourselves in a new place, a new environment, a new country. And Switzerland is a major migration destination. We talk a lot about the fact that as of 2022, about 40% of all Swiss permanent residents over 15 have a migration background, whether they themselves have come to Switzerland or at their parents' or grandparents' level. So as a result, you do have these communities, many different communities in Switzerland, many different languages spoken. For me particularly, it was interesting to see the first and second generation differences in Switzerland, how they're integrating, how they felt about community. So could you please speak about how you approached the creation of this film with respect to those migrant communities? You said you had personal friends from Eritrea and your cooperative in Zurich, but in terms of continuing to research and familiarize yourself, being involved in that community, building the script, that sort of thing.
Yes, it was obviously a challenge, and I mean it from a very beginning. I mean, I have my doubts regarding the fact that I am a white woman and make a film about a black woman, and it was much before Black Lives Matter happened, etc. But for me, it was always the thing that was very important to me, that it would have to be something where I would have to really collaborate and cooperate with women from Eritrea on these levels. It was very important to me that I didn't want to make a film where I tell my story. And I mean, it's still, and for that, for me also, which is what is very important, is that in the end, it is a film about, it's mother-daughter story. It's a film about a mother and her teenage daughter. And I'm a mother and I have a teenage daughter. So this is something I know very well, in a very, very different way, obviously. But still, this is something I can completely relate to, and any mother, I think, in the world can relate to, and any woman who has a mother can relate to somehow. So I think it's something which is very, very universal, and I think it's very important. So that was one part which was very important to me, to keep it on this level of, I'm a mother and I will meet other mothers from Eritrea who will tell me how it is for them, and then we will find out how to really tell this story in a correct way. So and so I yes, also through other articles in Tagesanzeiger this time, they had like also in 2015-16, after this negative wave of articles in the Blick, they had like a series which was also illuminating more like a more positive side of like people from Eritrea. And in one of those articles, I found a woman, and through the journalist, I found her and met her. And it was a very important person that I met, very early stage, that I could always, what it was important for me when I read about her was that she was a single mom who had a teenage daughter. And I thought that was so interesting. And then I talked to her, and she had parallels. She had absolutely not had this really extreme situation as in Semret's life, but she had similarities to Semret. Also this way of kind of like going a bit, away from her community in the beginning, so she needed to integrate, close herself a bit around her daughter to protect her. This was something that I found with her, and it was very good to have this person where I could, every 2 or 3 months, I would write to her and tell her, hey, I thought about this scene and this scene, and she was just like a mirror to me. She was like, yes, that sounds correct, that happens that way, or this happens, or then she would tell me, this, she would tell me things. So this was one person was very important. Then I found other women through the Eritrean Medienbund, which is a very interesting organization in Switzerland, where a lot of people from, which is mostly, it's not led, it's led by Swiss and Eritrean people, but it's very interesting. They have a lot of information for people from Eritrea, etc. And they are very politically active also. And they have, oh, now I have a blackout, sorry. I'm sorry, but there's this fantastic woman, and she has this women empowerment group, an online group, which actually then inspired me to make this group of women sitting in the circle, because I mean, this I have not found anywhere, but this was like my, Eurocentric vision of like a group like this. But she has this kind of group like online, so that, or they chat, they speak about things like that to do this women empowerment thing, to really acknowledge that these atrocities do happen to very, very many women, and that it's really not their fault, and they are not to be blamed for, and they had not to, it's not, they don't have to be stigmatized about that. So that was very important. And then she was also, she even has a little role in the film, and I have a blackout. I'm really, really sorry. And then throughout, then there were new people coming. Johanna came, another woman from Eritrea, a younger woman who then was with me during the shooting. To most of the time she was there to check, for the dialogues that they were correct, because I don't speak and I don't understand Tigrinya. So I had many women around me that helped me in different stages. Also, somebody made translations, and yes, and so that was really fantastic to kind of like slowly become part of this. Mostly women, I must say. I did spend, I did got to know mostly women, and they really helped me a lot. And we went to, they had different levels where they would work with me, so that was really nice. And also this woman I met at the very beginning, she has a small part in the film, so that was really lovely. So I really go full circle, and some, I still meet them today, so whatever. So
that's fantastic. And it's fantastic. It sounds like, a community built up around the film as well, this community you were exploring, and then it built up around the film.
Yes, absolutely.
And so, as you mentioned, the film deals with some very heavy and traumatic subject matter, and particularly around Semret's story of leaving Eritrea, yet it is incredibly introspective and quiet. And, that seems to reflect Semret's own quiet nature and her unwillingness to sort of look at this piece of her life and her past. So what was your thinking in approaching these topics this way, to have them be sort of a bit more in the background, not as in the face of the viewer, but have it be more introspective and reflective?
Well, I guess it's a bit the films I like that are like that, and I also but also really I was inspired by women I met and I saw. That it was very much. I think it has a lot to do with the body language. That it's Semret is almost she's like constantly hiding from something. Her body. She's not expansive. She's very quiet, and so it all came together with this image of this woman being very, very introverted, and also like. As a protection, really. I thought it was really correct, it would go together. And this woman has never told the story to anyone before. So it was obvious that when she would say something, that, the words would not come easy, and it would not be, so obvious and clear what she would say. And at the same time, I also thought it would be really interesting to have, obviously, at that moment, Joe would already know things. So that was a bit the idea of the construction of the film, that Joe being a teenager and wanting to know stuff, and her identity, wanting to find out about her roots and who am I, where am I going, she would, by digging in these things, she would obviously start to find out these dark things from the past of her mom. So that was a bit the idea now, to have this, like the revelation, or what Semret tries to hide. It's Joe that somehow finds out without her really telling her. So that was a bit the idea of going from this character that is Semret, who doesn't speak and doesn't say anything, who doesn't, never complains, never, ever. So to go to Joe, who's like, I want to know, okay? So
yeah.
And then this, but it's a very tiny clash. Obviously, it's not, it's a very
Right.
European way of making films, and very quiet. Oh, my way, maybe,
Yeah.
my way.
Yeah. Well, and it's almost more powerful that way, right? Because the audience is making these discoveries, or kind of starting to ask the right questions along with Joe as the film moves forward. So it maybe is almost more effective sometimes to have this be a silent approach.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you mentioned this mother-daughter story. It's universal. The story has women at the heart. And so as a female director, and having worked as an editor as well in the film industry, I wanted to ask your thoughts on the evolution of women in film and filmmaking, and especially since you have worked behind the camera and made the jump also from editor to director. What are your thoughts on the current role of women in filmmaking, the evolution, and are you optimistic for the future? I know you said you are optimistic in general, so.
Yes. Well, I mean, yeah, I think, there's still a lot to do, and but what I really, really do believe is we have to do it. And, we could speak about it, but we have to do it. And if we don't do it, it's not going to happen. So that's what I really believe in. So that's for me, and I really, really believe in obviously also being aware of the fact that, you see lists like 100 best movies, and it's true, it's historic, it's difficult, but still there are like 5 women, and there are more than 5. I'm exaggerating a bit, but and I think these are things where we really have to have an eye on, but it's, in the past years, I think some of the absolutely best films are made by women. There's no doubt about that. There used to be this thing where it's like, oh, this is a women's film, like for women or whatever. And this is like, what is that even about? What's, it's like, yeah, we're 50% of the population of this world, and it's a film about, one of these people in this world. And it's true. We see obviously mostly men, mostly white men in films, and have seen them for a long, long time. And things are changing, the sex changes, the colors of the skins changes, the language people speak in films changes. All these things change, and this is just great, because in the end, it just makes everything more interesting, and it makes, the world more, you see what the world really is, and we don't just see, always the same white men, which can be super interesting. I have nothing against, good old Scorsese, whatever. But yeah.
Right. And you see how interconnected we are too, when the stories, of people who don't look like you still resonate with you, and you can relate to them. It just helps us understand each other better. Yeah. Oh, wonderful. Well, again, just a quick reminder, I just have a couple of more questions. So if anyone who's watching on Crowdcast has a question, please do go ahead and click the Q&A button to ask your question before we wrap up here. So we've addressed a lot, and I know this is not an easy question, but what is, Caterina, sort of a primary thing you would like viewers to take away from the film?
Yeah, I think that is a difficult thing, because in general, I'd love to everybody find something for themselves, but it's a nice thing you said before, having the opportunity to follow a woman for 85 minutes that you have maybe seen, in the bus or in the subway, but you have no clue where she goes, where she lives, how she is, what she does. I think, I mean, for me, this is already something which is worth watching this film, you know, to like realize, okay, you know, it's just the same, you know, and she just has, you know, her traumas are just way bigger than mine, but, you know, it's just the same. And what she wants from this world, what she wants from this life, her dreams, her wishes are just the same, and what she needs, you know. So this is something I think is very important to me, that it sounds very stupid, but that we're just all the same somehow. You know, it's very
I think that's fantastic.
And, yeah, and also, I mean, you know, give the kids a chance, you know. I mean, yeah, it's just, and I mean, I know my film is sad and a bit dark, but it's obviously shows very it's a very positive, you know, I mean, how Joe is and how her mother is. I mean, I know the reality of most people who have, you know, are here and are waiting to have their answers when they have them for their asylum request, and they get a no, and like Yaman in the film. I mean, it's so tough, you know, and then being a child of this of these people who don't know if they can speak here, who don't manage to learn the language and everything, it's so difficult, you know. So I know there is obviously a whole universe I have just not touched, you know, and I have not. The film doesn't, you know, doesn't speak about racism, you know, just very, you know, little. So I mean, there are so many more topics, obviously, that are very important. But I think for me, this the most important was really to show, yeah, this woman is just any 33-year-old woman with a child.
Right. Well, speaking of the future again, what are you working on now, and what might we see from you next?
Well, I've actually just edited a film, which was very interesting, which is, yeah, it's being finished now. So I've been working on somebody else's film again for a while. It's called Electric Child by Simon Jacquemet. It's about very, very interesting, very topical theme. It's about AI. It's about like a data scientist who works in AI, and he starts to program this being, and then then he loses a bit his own reality because he wants to be more in this virtual reality. So it's a very topical theme, and it's going to be, I don't know, it should come out at the beginning of the next year. So yeah, that's very interesting. But I have my own project as well, yes, but still in a very, very early stage. I think, I mean, also for my short film Lost, I think what really interests me is this trauma. How do you get over trauma? How do you work with it? You know, these are my topics. This is what interests me. So it's going to be again about other trauma you can live. It's a bit more autobiographic. It's more like in a my kind of environment. So it's not going to be in a very interesting, different community we don't know much about. So no, it's going to be, yes, but I'm still really in a very early stage of development. So.
Well, thank you. We'll stay tuned. The film you just edited does sound incredibly topical and interesting, and we also want to stay tuned for your next project as well. So hopefully you'll keep us updated on that.
Yeah.
But yeah, with that, Caterina, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today, to answer questions, and for sharing your stories, your insights, and most importantly, the film with us. We really appreciate it. And to everyone who watched the film, who's watching the discussion, on behalf of the Embassy of Switzerland here in the US, I want to thank you all also for participating in the film club, and especially this month's film club. It's really wonderful that there's so much positive response and we can keep these programs going. So please stay tuned to our social media channels at Swiss Embassy USA and our newsletter for more information about upcoming films. And with that, thank you once again, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you.